The man led his son to the public toilet of the subway station. The toilet paper is flowing all over the floor. This place has become their sleeping place at night. The man was not even sleeping. The outside suddenly heard the sound of the door hurriedly knocked. The man used his hands to cover his son's ears and shook his legs and used all his strength to block the door. At this time, he just expected the outsiders to leave soon. A person who has been a salesperson every day always have to smile to welcome customers. Right now, a strong person like him finally could not be forced. But he still tried his best not to cry out loud. Sometimes life is really difficult. Obviously, I have made great efforts, but why is life still like that? This is the darkest time in his life. Later, he tried his best to create miracles. Not only succeeded in a difficult period, but also fortunate to become a billionaire. This is definitely an inspiring movie not to be missed. The story took place in the U.S. in 1981. At that time, the United States was experiencing a serious economic crisis. The streets are full of homeless people fainting from hunger. On the TV, the U.S. president is announcing sad numbers. The man in front of the screen named Creed. Before the economic crisis occurred, he used all the savings to buy a lot of bone scanner and became the only supplier in San Francisco. He thinks he will earn great benefits, since then can live a happy life. But the reality cruelly knocked him down. His scanner is only a bit sharp than the usual machine, but the price is double the usual machine. Therefore, when for sale, he was always rejected. Now, Creed has been unemployed for several months. Not only did the rent owed more than 2 months, but his son also had to go to school in a kindergarten. But even from happiness was written wrong. To maintain this family, his drowning wife must do 2 jobs a day. The pressure of life turned into cold satirical words aiming at him. Creed can only silently endure everything. It is said that the unicornly painting. That day when Creed went to sell the scanner, due to the wrong parking, not only was locked by the police, finally his car was pulled away. This makes his inherently more difficult family growing. You have to sell at least 2 scanners per month to live. But in fact, he has not sold any for a long time. Creed walked in the street. It's been a long time since he had a true smile from his heart. That day, when he walked through an office building, he met a man who drove a luxury ceiling. Creed proactively greeted, "What are you doing, and how?" The man smiled and answered him, "I am a securities plot." Creed curiously, "This job certainly needs a university degree, right?" The man told him, "Just good at calculating and knowing how to behave is enough." Looking at the happy face of everyone around, Creed also began to dream of becoming a securities world. Why can't I be like them? After one night of thinking, he told his wife about his intention, but only received mockery back. Securities cunning house? Yeah, why not make astronaut always go? Next, the two of them had a fierce argument. Creed believes everything will be better, but his wife no longer believes in his words. She has done 2 jobs a day continuously for more than 4 months. She just hoped he could sell indoor scanners soon. Despite the no support of his wife, Creed still came to the securities company building, so that he was more dashing when he entered. Creed thanks to a girl playing a guitar on the street to help the scanner. He also gave her $1 like money to thank, and emphasized that this machine was not worth anything. Unexpectedly, when he had just received an application, I saw the guitar girl took the device away. Creed hurriedly chased her. He ran all his force to the subway station, but helplessly looked at her on the train and left. At one time, it takes a whole month of living expenses. Creed only smashed into the train door for a little angry. After calming, he started to review the application. The company punishes every 6 months to recruit 20 trainees, but eventually hold only 1 person. The requirement of the level on the application is only recorded from level 3 or higher. It seemed too far away to him. That night, Creed could not sleep. He thought that he should take this fragile opportunity and sink into the ceiling. The next day, when taking her children to school, his wife kept reminding it was best to sell the machine before going home. After taking the child to school, Creed did not go to the scanner. Instead, he took the application to the school company. Unlike most people who only applied at the front desk, he directly gave an application to the human resources manager. When he walked down the stairs, he accidentally saw the guitar girl holding his device. No but dangerous from the cars on the road, he rushed to chase. Finally, he regained the bus on the bus. Creed's son after school was touched when he saw 2 scanners. Didn't Dad said he would sell the device? Why now become 2? Creed's wife also only looked at him helpless. Regardless of Creed trying to explain, his wife did not want to hear any more. From before you were pregnant, I said everything will be better, but up to now, we still have nothing. Even his wife no longer believes. Creed in desperate much. Due to the fierce competition at the school company, after applying, he did not receive a response. Creed decided to wait under the company building. Unexpectedly, he waited for a month. Until the day he happened to meet the human resources manager. He really wanted to talk directly to him. Let him know he is not only good at math, but also very skillful in communication. However, the head of the department was hurriedly going away. To seize this one-year opportunity, Creed lied that he also went to the same place. So both of them went on a taxi to impress the head. Creed constantly introduces myself, but the head of the department was engrossed in turning the Rubik in his hand. He did not even glance at Creed. At that time, Rubik was just popular. Rarely anyone can complete it. Looking at the head of the room, I could not solve it. Creed Lynn said I could. You can't do it, let me see. The head of the department seemed despair and gave the Rubik block to Creed. He did not believe that Creed could solve. Unexpectedly, Creed quickly completed one side. After that, he focused all on the Rubik block. Finally, before the car arrives, Creed has completed the entire Rubik block. The manager looked at him with unbelievable looks. Even the driver could not help but turn around to see. Creed can solve the Rubik block. It turned out that he had such a toy at home. In his spare time, he often groped. Unexpectedly, it is helpful at this time. This has left a deep impression on the head. The manager hurriedly went to the meeting and got off the bus shortly after. Look at the $18 display clock. Creed looked at her empty wallet. When the car stopped at the light, Creed jumped out of the car and took the engine to run away. Just running, he sang loudly. In fact, he did not want to kneel. But in this situation, he has no other choice. Unexpectedly, the driver chased him non-stop. Even when Creed ran into the subway station, the driver continued to chase. To cut the driver's tail, Creed jumped on a train to close. Although he was on the train, the machine was unfortunately stuck outside the door. Creed tried her best to pull the device inside. However, all efforts are useless. Finally, he was forced to let go. No, a month of living expenses is so lost. He did not know how to explain when he came home, and do not know what to do next. Under the heavy rain, he called his wife. Hopefully she can pick her up home. But in response, he was a word. I decided to leave. I cleaned up the furniture and tried to take my child to leave here. Creed runs like crazy home, but still one step late. His wife took her son to leave. The house is also empty. Exactly the Creed button was sad, the head of the room called. Ask him for a few more days to interview. But first, please record the number of the secretary. She will inform him all the note. At this time, Creed has just discovered in the house without even a pen. He had to remember the number in his head and ran to the nearest store that was both mistaken and remembered. Quickly find a pen to write down the phone number. That night, Creed Tran poked no sleep. The next morning, he soon found his wife. Hope to be able to bring my son back to me. Because of this, the two argued violently on the street. But his wife insisted on not giving in. Just because I want to be with a son. Haven't waiting for his school to finish, Creed took him home early. Unexpectedly, when he got home, the landlord came. Their rent has been owed for 3 months. If you do not pay immediately, you must move immediately. Under Creed's plea, the last landlord agreed for another week. But the condition is that Creed has to repaint the house for him. While Creed was painting the house, the 2 police officers arrived. After that, he was taken to the police station. It turned out that he did not pay a fine ticket before. Without cash, Creed had to write a plate. But at that time, the bank was closed. Police have to wait until 9:30 a.m. tomorrow to confirm with the bank. Only when they finished, they released him. Creed had to call his wife. After that, he was imprisoned all night. It was not until 9:45 a.m. the next morning, after the verification was completed, the police would release him. Leaving the police station, Creed rushed to the securities company building. He finally arrived before the interview. Others dressed in ching-tay, and he wore daily clothes full of paint. It was surprisingly surprised to see his appearance. "Are you losing my face?" Creed actively stepped over to shake hands from people. Arranging is clearly uncomfortable. Not for the interviewers to speak up, Creed honestly started to speak. "Standing at the door, I tried to think of a reasonable reason to explain my appearance today. But in the end, I felt the truth. I was arrested by the police for not paying a fine ticket, and I just ran from the police station here. Before being arrested, I was painting the house, so it becomes this form." Revealing uncomfortable appearance bricks a few rounds of caper. Seeing the chance of a delicate success, Creed actively said, "Can I say a few words?" His sincere words have attracted the attention of the folding. Reel up a different question to him. "If there is a person who doesn't wear a shirt and runs to the interview, what will you think? If I still hire that person in the end, how will you feel?" Certainly, his pants must be very special. The funny and interesting answer made all the interviewers smile. Despite the successful interview, when walking out of the room, Creed did not smile, because it was only that until then he knew the internship lasted for 6 months but did not pay a salary. At the end of the internship, the company will choose one of 20 people. If not selected to another company, all training courses will have to start over again. Currently at home, there are 6 scanners. If they sold them all smoothly, he probably temporarily held up until the end of the internship. But in the end, which path should you choose? No one can give him a clear answer. That night, his wife took her home. She told Creed that she was about to move to New York to develop. "Perhaps there we'll have a better chance. Creed wants you to live with me." This time, his wife did not say anything more. Before leaving, she entered the room again, looking at the son full of regret. She asked Creed, "I knew he would take good care of it." Creed, "I believe that." Creed did not say anything, because he didn't know what would happen next. He could only watch his wife leave. Creed is full of helplessness. That moment, he secretly determined, definitely make a story. After that, he called the securities company, agreed to take their 6-month training course. To save costs, they moved to a cheaper rental house. Saturday, he took his son to play basketball. The son happily said, "Growing up will become a professional basketball player." Which father thinks that father? Since childhood, he was not good at playing basketball. "I do not have any hope as a professional basketball player." Well, soon think about other things. The son lost all the animals because he was criticized. "My teacher was sad." Creed realized that he was wrong. After that, he told his son, "Don't let others tell me that you cannot succeed. Even 3 cannot. If you have a dream, protect it. If you have the ideal, make an effort to do it." That day, Creed was lucky to sell a scanner. Finally, there is enough living expenses this month. Next, the practice officially started. They not only participate in theoretical training at the company, but also have to learn a thick book about professional knowledge. To be able to impress the company, Creed enlisted 10 minutes to take a break to greet the boss and be able to ask for some internal information. When the two of them were chatting happily, Creed saw the lost scanner at the subway station in the hands of a crazy homeless. Say goodbye quickly to the boss. He quickly followed that person. Due to focusing on homeless people, he was hit by a car when crossing the road. For a moment, he had a scum. The shoes on the legs also do not know where it falls. Creed tries to suffer from leg pain to find shoes, but in the end, I still couldn't find it. He had to walk a shoe back to the company. Every day, he not only participated in high-intensity training sessions, he also has to do everything for the instructor. Sometimes go buy coffee, sometimes running through the road to buy donuts. At the end of working time, he hurriedly welcomed his child to school. The first is a paragraph subway, then change to the bus. They have to cross more than half of the city to go home to choose to sleep. Sometimes the two are too tired, so they doze off on the bus. After a period of training, they started to try calling people. To save calling time, Chris picked up the phone and then turned down immediately. Never put the phone down to have more time to call. In his company, he did not drink water to save time without having to go to the toilet. Only in that way, he completed his work for 8 hours in 6 hours, because he needs to work early to welcome his children to school. That day, he was very difficult to meet a CEO. That person will be free for a few minutes after 20 minutes. Chris put down the phone and rushed over there. If closed, this will be a big customer, he constantly encouraged himself. But as soon as he came under the building, he was called back by the instructor. Before Chris rejected, the instructor ran away. Reluctantly, he had to withdraw the car first. While opening the car door with a key, the opposite park was occupied by another car. He drove very far away to find a parking place. After parking, he quickly ran very fast. It looks like a strong black leopard. But even though he runs very fast, his son is very cute. At the same time, the general manager was also planning to take his son to see the rugby match, so he invited Chris' father and son to accompany. The place to see the ball is a luxurious private room. Although not reaching the cooperation agreement, but seeing that son was so happy, Chris felt that the trip was worth it. When the match ended, everyone in the room thought Chris was a close friend of the general manager, and they gave him a business card. In the 4th month of practice, Creed was fortunate to sell all scanners. Thinking that happy life is about to start, a letter pulled him back to reality. It was a tax invoice of $600 that he had to pay immediately. After paying the tax, his account was only $21 left. To maintain his life, he went to reclaim the $14, but the friend used the reason to help him move to deduct debt. In the end, 2 friends for many years became over $14. That day, while playing with his son in the park, Chris saw the homeless person holding his scanner. Chris rushed to get it back. If sold, it will be a living expense for the whole month. He carefully cleaned the scanner from the inside out. It is very difficult to find a doctor who needs it. But the device cannot turn on, because the epidemic has just grasped in hand again. But the tragedy continues. When they return home, the entire solids were thrown out because of the hired rent on time. The lock has also been replaced. Chris tried to climb through the window and all efforts were in vain. After thinking, he decided to take his son to leave. But the boy did not understand. Obviously housing here, why can't enter? The boy clung to the door, constantly screaming. Chris first loudly with his son. "Hey, heard you say? Stop now, shut up. There is no place to go." They arrived at the subway station. The heavy boy asked where they would go. Chris also did not know how to answer. The boy suddenly asked, "Is this a time machine?" Because the crazy homeless people always say that. Seeing me ask that, Chris decided to follow my imagination. Chris said, "This is a time machine, can bring them back to the past." The father and son started playing the time travel, the fake that they returned to the dinosaur period. Around them are full of dangerous dinosaurs. They have to find a cave to hide. Chris led his son to hide in the bathroom. After flowing toilet paper on the floor, they sleep on the toilet floor. Suddenly, some people knocked on the toilet door. Chris had just been shaken by his son's ear to block the door. That moment, Chris, who was always resilient, could not stand it anymore. It turns out when people suffer and despair, they may shed tears without accepting their eyes. After a difficult night in the toilet, life must continue. From there, wherever he went, he always brought all his luggage, to avoid having to sleep in the toilet at night. They follow the homeless people to the Social Protection Center. Unexpectedly, Long Teeth did not see the end. When it was near their turn, the manager announced that there were only 4 seats. To win, Chris was always polite to fight with a homeless person on the line. The manager was angry and chased them out. Fortunately, some witnesses that the homeless people were really on the line. The homeless person was criticized to leave. That night, Chris bathed his son first. After coaxing his son, Chris sat in the corridor to repair the scanner. When the corridor lights off, he borrowed the light from the street lights to read books all night. During the day, he had to meet many customers. After work, he rushed to welcome his child to school, then rushed to the bus to the sponsor center. To make sure there are places on the bus, he taught his son how to squeeze in the car. To keep up with the curriculum, he even ate and took advantage of reading. Very quickly, the exam date came. A good contestant completed the lesson early and submitted. Chris also submitted the post right after. In the elevator, the good contestant said that the exam was too easy. Chris said the first part was easy, but the final question was quite difficult. Luan? Yes, on the back. The good contestant rushed back to the examination room. When Chris is about to see customers, the boss borrowed him $5 to pay for a taxi. Chris looked at his empty wallet, holding a $5 bill into it. In the end, he still lent the boss, because the test takes too much time. That day, they could not queue at the sponsor center. Because the boss borrowed $5, Chris only ordered a dinner. Watching his son eat, he could only try to endure his hunger. That night, the father and son spent the night on the subway. To have money to repair Scanner, Chris decided to sell blood. At this time, in the blood, he did not think of anything to sell anymore. Get money to sell blood, the first thing he did was to buy a U-shaped light bulb. To have a place to sleep in the evening, he took his son to learn how to squeeze in and run temporarily. Every day, he had to mix with homeless people. Chris felt sorry for his young son, but his son rubbed his face again and said, "Dad is a good father." After finishing ironing his son, he continued to repair the scanner. Replace the new light bulb. When pressing the switch, the scanner finally returns. The light immediately lit the room as a ray of hope to dispel all darkness. At the same time, that also gives Chris endless power. The next day, he sold the repaired scanner. In the end, he had enough living expenses in a month. That night, they no longer had to line up and run temporarily. Instead, they were in a motel. Perhaps familiar with the cable sleeping places, father and son overslept on the sofa. The next day, after work, they went to the coast to play. All the noise and suffering seemed to have left them. In the end, the father and son had a rare smile. In the following days, Chris found all patrons on the basketball court. He tried his best to do everything he could. Even so, he was not sure about being accepted. Very quickly, the final day of the internship came. Calling, Chris suddenly received a notice asking him to go to the boss's office. Chris hurriedly wore a vest back to the area. Entering the office, he waited for the final ruling. Unexpectedly, the boss actively shook hands with him and praised his shirt very beautiful and wanted him to wear it tomorrow, because tomorrow will be his first day. If you want to become a broker here, do you agree?
Chris? Yes, sir. Chris could not hold back tears. A person who is always active like him is now speechless. He could only repeatedly nodded in response to the boss. Chris compressed tears to shake hands with each person. When Chris left the room, the boss called him back. It turned out to return $5 that previously borrowed him. This is another way to recognize him. Out of the room, he was so touched that he could not hold the notebook. Until stepped out of the company, he cried between the east and performed the movements that only God could understand. He used all his strength to clap his hands. The silence but strong applause was the appreciation for him. This moment, happiness finally knocked on his door. He ran like a son's school, hugging me tightly, do not want to let go. From now on, he will no longer have to pull the child on the road. Instead, they will hold hands to walk very well. 6 years later, he founded his own investment company. In the last scene, the color passing by their father and son is the prototype of this story, Chris Gardner. The movie needs to be directed by Gabriel Muccino, with the participation of Will Smith and son Jaden Smith. This biography film debuted in 2006. Despite being a Hollywood-inspiring movie, we cannot help but exclude. People want to rise up, so difficult. Most of them are not because they do not work hard enough, but because of the tight-fitting chain, they don't give them the opportunity to breathe. Like Chris in the movie, to facilitate the scanner table, he must bring the heavy machine 20 pounds per day to sell. To become a securities broker, he had to practice without pay for 6 months. To be extended the rent, you have to help the landlord to paint the house. Because there is no money to pay cars, he had to spend the night at the police station. Because there was no place to go, he had to hug his son to sleep in a public toilet. In order to have a place to run temporarily, he had to pull his son fast on the road. Fortunately, Chris surpassed everything, and finally he achieved success. In fact, the path of life is to lead the step forward based on your own dream, belief, hard work, and perseverance. Only when so, we have the opportunity to prove ourselves on that journey and find the value we want. So the story today ends here. We hope everyone likes, comments, and shares. Thanks for watching. See you later in the next video.